In this video, me and my buddy Gavin, the creator of Choo Choo Charles and his next game, Cuff Bust, discuss, in my opinion, the single most important question every indie game developer should be asking. How does he keep coming up with his $1 million game ideas? Look, it's no secret that Gavin is a wildly successful indie game developer with some of the most impressive viral game ideas under his belt. Gavin's ideas are so catchy that his new game, Cuff Bust, was featured at Summer Game Fest, where millions of people watched his debut trailer, resulting in over 100,000 wish lists in the snap of a finger. How does this 22-year-old do it? He and I discussed this, and hopefully you'll learn how you can do it too in your next indie game.
So my question for you is, how did you know that this idea was going to work? Or did you know this idea was going to work?
Well, I'll say right up front, I don't think you can really know an idea is going to work, because there were times where I really didn't, where I genuinely thought that it wasn't going to work. I guess I'll kind of just quickly go through the timeline of like how I came up with the concept and how I decided I guess I'll start working on this.
And I think we should side note really quick, because a lot of people are probably thinking the game's not out. How does Thomas or Gavin know it's good?
True.
What we're talking about is marketability right now. Yeah. We're talking about, holy crap, Gavin got 100,000 wish lists. How did he know how to do that? Because you only do that with a good idea. And you only do that with a really good trailer. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the process of creating a prototype and something that can go viral. And you did that, and you've done that multiple times. So go ahead.
Sort of. I will say, when it comes to like the trailer and the virality of this one, Summer Game Fest was probably the biggest reason for that. This game hasn't really gone viral yet. But
relative to the people listening, though, it has, because I look at your devlogs, people would kill for 100,000.
I think it's mostly within just my existing audience.
Do you feel like you were able to get a significant amount of wish lists from your own audience?
And by the way, if you're like me and you always dreamt of making an indie game as a full-time job, I have a free webinar below that goes into exactly how to make 6 figures with just a demo. I was just like you for years. I thought I had to make a game in its entirety before getting a paycheck, but there's actually 3 ways to make 6 figures before even finishing your game. I've done this multiple times, so check it out below if you do want to go full-time indie. Otherwise, let's continue.
I mean, yeah, probably 10 or 20,000. It would be kind of my estimate. I don't have specific stats, but that would be kind of my guess, because it hasn't gotten... Yeah, the devlogs haven't done nearly as well as like my Choo Choo Charles devlogs.
Sure.
Yeah, so with the concept stuff, initially, I'd finished up the original version of Choo Choo Charles. It was out on PC, and I started kind of thinking about new game ideas. And so there was this one day where I was going on SteamDB to check stats on some game or another, and I saw that Prison Architect was trending, and I was like, Prison Architect, man, that's a pretty cool concept, you know, that you can like make a prison. And then I was just sitting there and I was thinking, man, it really would be cool if like you could actually just escape from the prison. Like, I was like, why hasn't somebody just made like a really good prison escape game? And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I could do that. Yeah. So that was the initial kind of spark. But from there, it was kind of a matter of, I guess, looking for reasons that it could succeed. My first thinking was, okay, well, prison escapes are a fairly popular concept. It's popular in like movies and TV shows and stuff. And, you know, it's popular on like Roblox. Like there's so many massive Roblox, or maybe not so many, but I know that there's at least a couple really, really, really big Roblox games about prison breaks. You know, because of that, it's got a little bit of, you know, kind of nostalgia in the same way that Thomas the Tank Engine and Choo Choo Charles formed that sort of nostalgia.
Well, did you watch the Prison Break show? Or Shawshank Redemption or any of those?
I did watch Shawshank. Yeah. I have not watched the Prison Break show. A bunch of friends were telling me like, bro, you gotta watch that one. That's a great one. But
the first season. After that,
that's what I was hearing. Yeah. In any case, yeah. So it was kind of just looking for reasons that it would succeed. So things like that, seeing like, okay, it's popular over here. This is another concept that I think was pretty smart, and I think it would make sense to do it on a wider scale. There's this other game called A Way Out, and it's sort of a AA, maybe kind of AAA. I haven't looked too much into the developers, but it's a multiplayer prison escape game. I think it's split screen, where you have 2 players and you work together and you try and break out of a prison.
Oh, it's EA.
And
by the way,
EA, yeah. And you know, it did, like from our perspective as indie developers, solo developers, or just, you know, general gamers, you know, it's probably made tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so we look at that and it's like,
reviews on Steam.
yeah. So we look at that and it's like, wow, that's insane. That did so well. For EA, 10, $20 million, that's probably not that much. You know, that might be like just barely breaking even, you know? So there are certain concepts that I think they're not quite big enough. They're not quite profitable enough that like a AAA company could go and put like $100 million behind it and then be super profitable with it. Like it's concepts they're not gonna hit quite that high of a ceiling. But for indie developers, people like ourselves, we might be able to take those sort of failed AAA concepts, do it on an indie scale, and be able to kind of pick up, you know, some of these like larger crumbs that AAA studios don't really see enough value in, but would be super valuable for people like us. So, you know, so I was looking at games like that. It was, you know, it was moderately successful, but there still wasn't anything that kind of fit sort of that more like lighthearted, bombastic. Like it's a way out. It's a very serious, kind of a gritty, you know, it's a AAA campaign game. So when you say create it, but in an indie scale, that I would really love for you to break down what you mean by that. Obviously, it's a budgetary thing. It's just not a lot of money. That would be kind of the main thing.
And what does that mean in terms of production, right? In terms of assets, in terms of mechanics. What do you mean by that?
It really just means simplifying. That's the biggest thing. You know, obviously, as solo or small indie studios, we don't have the people or the time to make, you know, 100 individual photorealistic characters with mocap animations. We can't do that. That's a nice start. You know, so instead we make a single Jalian model that's kind of stylized with goofy animations, and everybody plays as the same Jalian character, and then like that simplifies it a lot. That cuts the time and budget down by like, oh, that's probably like an easy $500,000 off the budget, probably an easy 6 months of development time cut down. Simpler environments, keeping the prison smaller, you know, making use of assets, being okay with things looking not perfect. You know, that's one of the things when you're making commercial games, you can't do everything to the highest, you know, like possible quality, because pretty much any competent solo developer is probably capable. Like I could probably, if I spent enough time on it, I could make a AAA quality character model. I could do that, but it would take me 8 months. Every developer is capable of making really, really high quality stuff, but you kind of just have to decide how much time you actually want to put into your project, and just be okay with certain things being just not that great. Like getting it to a level that's competent and, you know, maybe, I don't want to say like above average, because then people start, you know, comparing too much, and it's like, you know, at a level that you're comfortable with, I guess would be the main thing.
Well, how do you triage that? You know, it's like, I've compared, in my own mind, I compare indie game development to being like the emergency room in a hospital, where it's like, you really do have to triage what's important and what's not. What comes through the door and what you work on is emergent, or it's very important, or it's high value. Now the question is, a lot of game developers, people listening right now, they focus on what they like and what they enjoy making and what they want to spend their evening working on. Especially for hobbyist game devs, they're going to be triaging what they like, not what's important. And so my question for you is, when it comes to scaling down and you know, not making a Prison Break game like A Way Out, how do you scale down and decide the spoon is very important, the soap is very important, the sewer is very important? How did you decide that? I
mean, I will first make a quick distinction. Like, we've got the features that you as a developer want to add, and the features that are important to players, or that'll make a, you know, a difference in the game itself. I do think it's very important to have some time, like take a set amount of time. Maybe it's like 10% of your time or 20% of your time, and put that towards features that like you really like. You know, be careful not to like, you know, overdo your budget, right? But like, I think it is important, at least for me, I like doing this. You know, if you're trying to be like really, really businessy, then you might just want to ignore that entirely. But, you know, there are features that I just think would be cool that probably aren't adding that much to the game. Like yesterday, I spent the entire day working on a vending machine. Just putting a vending machine in the game. It's not necessarily a monumental feature. Yeah. But I like vending machines, bro.
I mean, is it part of the economy, or is it just for fun?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, like you can go up to the vending machine and like put coins in it to like get different items out. So like it's a thing that has a gameplay application. So yeah, I think it is good to take some time to do some interesting stuff, just to make sure you are still enjoying working on your project. But Beyond that, majority of the time should be spent on the most important things. Kind of the way that I generally try and think about it is, if I don't include this feature, will people write a negative review saying that I should have included it? Or like, if I don't include this feature, will anybody notice that it's not there?
Well, that sounds like it could make a lot of people paranoid, like
I suppose.
I think that way too. And it's like, I'm always like, well, I got to include this and I got to do that to this level and add this kind of asset because people will get frustrated that it's not there.
Yeah, I think it mostly comes down to just reading a lot of Steam reviews. Just read Steam reviews. Just see what people get mad about. Usually it's going to be stuff like, there's no key bindings. So stuff like that. Obviously that's a very, very important feature. Every game should have that. When it comes to more gameplay related stuff, it's I guess in those scenarios, right? Because it really does depend. Because I think oftentimes there are features that are good that, it's not necessarily that somebody was going to write a negative review if it wasn't there. I'm trying to think about like Choo Choo Charles. The pickle mission. It's just a goofy mission that I added where you try and go find a jar of pickles. A lot of people liked it and it was good. There were some funny clips that came out of it, some viral moments. But I don't necessarily think that people would write a negative review if there wasn't a pickle mission. If that just never existed and people didn't even know about it, people probably wouldn't be angry about it. So it's kind of a nuanced sort of thing. I don't know. It is kind of hard to know. It's really just about boiling it down and trying to simplify things where you can, not trying to overcomplicate things. I think a lot of developers, they'll add big complicated features like a massive skill tree system that isn't really necessary. You could have a skill tree with 100 different skills, or you could have a basic upgrade system with 3 different stats that you just upgrade over time. So I think there are ways to simplify complicated features.